So to me, around $3,000 is the best price point when it comes to buying a camera for YouTube, because chances are you're likely gonna also need a few other things, such as lighting. Like, I make videos every day and I would rather spend $4,000 on lights and just $3,000 on cameras rather than, you know, spending $7,000 or maybe even $5,000 on just a camera. Lighting is far more important, and it's the reason why this set looks so good. I've spent quite a bit on lighting, and to prove it, I'm just going to start off this video with my top pick and the camera that I bought personally for work. It's the camera that I'm currently using to record this video. This camera wasn't given to me. I bought this camera with my own money, and this camera comes in at around $3,000, and that's why we're talking about this in this video right here. The best YouTube cameras for about $3,000. This video isn't being paid for by any of the brands that we sell, so the goal here is just to be honest, and I'm going to tell you how it is. So let's get into it. The Panasonic S5 Mark II is my favorite camera to shoot with for so many reasons, but we're well below our $3,000 price point if you go body only. With the kit lens, that puts you slightly under $3K with taxes in, and I'll do my best not to oversell this camera, because here's the deal, my friend. I can shoot on any camera that I want. I have the Sony FX3, it's great, but if I can stick to the S5 Mark II, I like to do so every time, because I like the great colors that come from this camera. The IBIS is fantastic, the 6K open gate mode is awesome, and just the overall feel of this camera in the hand, the small Panasonic prime lenses that are all the same size and weight. This is all the reason why I really like this camera so much. But what else does this camera give us? This is a 24 megapixel full frame camera. It could shoot 9 frames per second in photo mode, but it does shoot 4K 60p, but that does crop in on the sensor a little bit, so you're essentially shooting with a crop sensor if you want that slow motion mode. The most common video codec is 4K 24 frames per second, but there are a ton of video codecs to choose from on this camera. My favorite is either 6K open gate, and we'll talk about that in a bit, or just the standard 4K 24p, but in 10-bit 422. And then it just makes applying the edit so nice, and the colors that you get from this camera are fantastic. You can record this to like a standard SD card, which is awesome because the colors are great and the dynamic range is great. And if you don't want to spend like an arm and a leg on like crazy fast SD cards, this 4K mode is more than enough. But when I shoot videos of products, I can swap it over to 6K open gate, which is a 3:2 aspect ratio. This means it's not as wide, it's a little bit taller than your standard 16:9, and then you get all that extra resolution. And then of course you can cut the 9:16 clips out of that video and use those for like Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts or whatever it may be. The only other camera that has this is the XH2S. That camera is around the same price, but the Panasonic is full frame and the Fujifilm is a smaller sensor. The IBIS is excellent, and Panasonic is well known for how smooth and stable their IBIS is. The boost stabilization mode nearly replicates a tripod, so best IBIS out there is a battle left to really only Panasonic and Sony. Yes, this camera has a touch and flip screen, so excellent if you want to rig the camera out and just shoot with the camera as is. The camera can charge via USB-C, and I like to rig my camera up and run around with a V-mount battery. I run the Atomos Ninja V Plus through the V-mount as well, because this camera can charge via USB-C. I could just run this camera all day, and if you're like me and you prefer to shoot video with a fully rigged out camera, no problem right here. Low light performance on this photo and video camera is quite good, but what makes this camera great in low light is the dual base ISO. So the normal base ISO for this video is 800, and this gives you the best image quality. In low light situations, you could also bump this up to 4000, and rather than shooting at 3800 or 3600, it actually is going to look a little bit cleaner if you bump it up to 4000, that next base ISO. One con I did notice when shooting on wider lenses is the readout speed of this camera. The edges of wider lenses tend to have a little bit of wobble. Once you zoom into either 24 or like higher, the wobble is nearly reduced to 0. But on those wider lenses, I definitely notice that jello effect, and that is just due to the sensor speed or sensor readout speed of this camera. So maybe this isn't the best camera for vlogging, but If you're kind of sticking to some of those lenses that are a little bit more like 24, 35, I personally, I don't shoot super wide a lot, and I'm not really moving the camera around a lot as well. But I do run and gun with, say, like a 35mm, and that's like 90% of what I use is just this 35mm 1.4. This is an excellent focal length, just kind of do most things. My last con with this camera is this little dial right here where your thumb kind of rests, and this happens to either control shutter speed or shutter angle. Yes, for the video enthusiasts, this camera has shutter angle, and that is an awesome feature for video shooters. Very few cameras outside of the cinema camera space have shutter angle. Unfortunately, I knock this dial all the time because that's where your thumb kind of rests a lot, and you can kind of combat this by choosing one of the many customizable buttons to lock the entire camera. And this is a very helpful feature because I know I just want to shoot like 24 frames per second and then not adjust my settings. So I'm going to lock the camera with the front button that I've selected. Now, even if my thumb knocks the dial, nothing changes. So to make changes in the menu, I just unlock the camera and then do what I need to do. This would be really annoying if Panasonic didn't make like all these buttons customizable, but this is on par with Fujifilm when it comes to the ability to make the camera your own and just customize everything. The Fujifilm X-T5 comes in two different kits, one with a 16 to 80mm lens and the other with an 18 to 55 lens. Both lenses are fantastic, but that 16 to 80 is the more premium option out of the two, and the 18 to 55 kit lens is likely going to be updated in the near future. I'm not sure what the plan is for X Summit this May, and that is happening this year. But we can kind of expect an update because this lens has been around for a little bit of time now. It's fairly old. Maybe this lens might get revamped, but I have no insider information here, so I'm just kind of guessing. Still, one of the better kit lenses out there, but the camera body on its own will keep you well below our $3,000 price target, and the kit with the 16 to 80 brings you just under our $3K target. The X-T5 is a dual-purpose like photo and video camera with a 40-megapixel sensor, the latest and greatest processors from Fujifilm, so you can record up to, you can get 20 frames per second in photo mode. It also has a flip screen for video because the high megapixels, this allows for 6.2K video in 16:9 or 17:9, and all these great film simulations you can apply to both photo and video. For those who aren't aware, Fujifilm, they used to make film, and they include these baked-in looks to their JPEGs with film simulations that can be used for video as well. And if you don't do much editing, or you're just getting started with color editing for photo or video, the best-looking JPEGs and the best-looking video when it comes to just color effects that come baked into the camera are coming from Fujifilm. The camera also has IBIS and a very fast sensor readout, but not too much warping or wobbling happens on this camera because of the smaller sensor size. So if you're at home or working in a studio or kind of running and gunning, this camera will definitely do okay with reducing some of that jello effect. Normally on those wide angle lenses, you might see it a little bit happening because of the IBIS within the camera, but that's kind of par for the course. You're going to save a lot of money since the lenses within those APS-C kind of lineup are a lot cheaper compared to the full frame competitors, but the quality is still top notch. Fujifilm is also very smart in the XT one-digit cameras, where they were the first to put this like little movie switch on their camera bodies, and Fujifilm executes this feature very well. The menu completely changes depending on if you're in still or movie mode, and the camera will remember the settings in photo mode versus the other settings in movie mode. This is not the case with many of the other brands that offer a photo or video switch, so this makes the transition between shooting video and then say taking a thumbnail super easy. Cons of this camera, that's a tough one. The price is very affordable, the dials on the camera make it very easy to change your core settings, and the lenses tend to be more affordable than the full frame competitors. If I'm kind of being picky, then maybe the menu system takes a little bit longer to navigate through compared to, say, somebody like Canon. But when you're learning any camera, that's just how it goes, right? It's a learning curve. Fujifilm has done a great job in organizing the menu and graying out a lot of the options when you're sifting through either photo or video features. The camera is just great value for money, so that's the reason why it's making this list. If full frame is a must-have for you, but you're also looking for the greatest eye detection out there and still want that photo and video switch that Fujifilm has on the X-T5, then the Sony a7 IV is the camera to look into. This is a 33 megapixel full frame camera with IBIS. It could shoot up to 10 frames per second. The camera will shoot 4K and can do up to 120 frames per second slow motion. That does require a CF Express card, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. But the body has your photo and video mode, and I just wish those settings would change as you go back and forth between the different modes. Not sure if that's something that Sony might be able to do in firmware, but overall, transitioning from photo to video is still pretty quick. ISO performance on this camera is excellent, as you would expect from any mid to top tier Sony camera. I took this camera to shoot at an MMA gym, and I was shooting photos as high as like 10,000 ISO. Of course, there's some grain in the photos for sure, but nothing a little noise reduction can't clean up a bit. And overall, the grain doesn't have like an unnatural look. It's actually kind of made it look a little bit more filmic, and that's where I kind of think that high ISO performance, that is definitely coming from Sony, the best of the best for sure. The camera body has a flip out screen, and the Sony has been working on their viewfinders, screens, and color science, all to make the shooting experience better. One thing I always notice on Fujifilm and Nikon cameras is that the images just look really good when viewing the photos through the viewfinder, and the same is the case for the Sony a7 IV. It's an exciting camera to use, and the Sony color science has gotten a lot better over the years since the a7 III, and that's because Sony has been working closely with the cinema world and trickled some of those tricks down from their high-end cinema cameras that make the image coming out of these cameras just really, really nice. Grading S-Log3, this is my favorite picture profile, and just applying a quick edit or like a Rec 709 LUT that you can download from Sony's website for free makes this easy to get really good looking video right out of the camera. A couple extra tweaks in any pro editing software. This is going to be getting you the best of the best for sure. So let's talk cons, because this kind of is a pro and a con at the same time. The camera does take SD cards, but does require a slightly faster SD card to maximize the capability of this camera for photo and video. The camera also has, it sometimes requires you to shoot to the CF Express Type A, which are great because they're super fast to offload or to shoot to when recording video. The downside here is the CF Express Type A cards are a little bit more in terms of the price when comparing them to like the traditional SD card. It's great that Sony has given the option to shoot to both, but some features do require you to record to the CF Express Type A. And then on top of that, most computers don't come with like a CF Express Type A card slot to offload your images or videos to. So a Type A card reader is a necessary accessory, and you don't want to go without. So overall, the quality you get from any of these cameras is fantastic, and I've used and absolutely love every camera that I've selected in this video, and this is the sweet spot where you get a lot of value, but you're not spending like a crazy amount of money either. It's so easy to get great looking footage from any one of these cameras that I've mentioned, and all of the models are available on henrys.com. For more info, you can just hop into a store near you. Don't forget to subscribe to see upcoming content from us here, including the next price tier that is $5,000. But that's all for me. My name's Anthony, and I will see you in the next one.